Rosie Sugden. I am an English teacher at Beverly Hills IEC, and this term I've been teaching level 3 English to a group of senior students. So my class is made up mostly of Chinese and Vietnamese students, with one Arabic speaking student, and they're at a high level 3. So next term they're exiting to high school. Most of them will go to year 10 and year 11. And in this context, I'm trying to prepare them for learning at high school. And for that reason, I've chosen to study representation as an outcome for visual literacy, because this will prepare them for high school. So I decided to focus on the topic of human rights because it's fairly relevant and interesting to my students, and it gave me a good starting point to think about social issues, which is something that we're exploring throughout the rest of the program this term. And I began by introducing the topic to the students with some vocabulary activities, concept mapping, things like that, just to build the field a bit and deconstruct what a human right actually is, where it comes from, who it applies to, that sort of thing. So we started with group discussions, and then I showed the students 2 videos online, one that explored the history of the Declaration of Human Rights and the other one that gave a visual representation of each right. And from there, the students discussed which rights they felt were the most important. We had a look at the document of the human rights. We did some language activities and some exposition activities, and then this led us on to the main focus of the unit, which was visual representation. It's one of our new outcomes, so in a sense I was trialling the outcome with this high-level class, which was a good opportunity for me to sort of see what kind of level they were at, and to give them an opportunity to work collaboratively and independently. So they had to each choose a right from the Declaration of Human Rights. First they worked in pairs to break it down and think of some examples from their own life about why it might be relevant, and then they had to work independently to visually represent it in a poster. So I gave them a scaffold or a planning sheet which built on the visual literacy language that we'd learnt previously in level 2. And then the students had one lesson in class and the weekend to work on their poster. And a lot of them, they thought quite deeply about what they were going to draw, what colours and what symbols and any kind of language they were going to use in their poster. And all of them were fairly successful. I think some of them were better than others, but they all sort of understood the way that images can be used to represent complex information in a poster. And then the second part of the task was to reflect on their poster, why they had made it that way, why they chose the colours and the shapes and the position and their use of visual literacy techniques. They had to justify it in a reflection statement. So I showed them an example from a previous student with a different poster, and we deconstructed it looking for particular language and structural features, and then I gave them a scaffold so that they could build their own reflection statement for their poster. After they'd done that, I checked their writing for grammar and language features, and then they rewrote it out properly. So in the end, the assessment for the unit, I suppose, had 2 parts, one being the poster and the other being the accompanying reflection statement. And seeing them both together, it was really interesting to see the students justifying their choices and explaining their meaning, and it was a good exercise all over. I think this unit was very successful on 2 fronts. Firstly, all the students achieved the outcome, which I thought was really quite excellent for them. They worked really hard on it and they put in a lot of effort. So I was really pleased about that. They all achieved quite a good mark. But also I felt that it was successful in terms of student engagement, because we did so many different kinds of skills and all the students were involved at every stage. They all had the option or the opportunity to participate, and to share their opinions and to express their views. So we did quite a lot of collaborative activities, but then later on when the students worked independently, they had to explore their own views, to represent their own views and to express their personal interests, which I think was a good opportunity for them, gave them kind of ownership over what they were doing. I think it worked really well because it was well structured and well scaffolded, which allowed me to break down the learning into clear and meaningful steps, and I think that really contributed to the depth of learning that occurred for all the students. It was also successful because it gave me the chance to set quite high expectations for the students, very high challenge, high support kind of activity, and by setting those high expectations at the beginning of the term, I've seen that they've raised their level throughout other activities that we've done this term. It allowed me to challenge them and also to realize that they were far more capable than I thought they were, which was a really pleasing experience for me because I realized that I shouldn't underestimate them, and that has informed the rest of my teaching this term. So it's been successful not just for the students but also for me to be able to reflect on the way I teach and the way I support the students at every step of every learning activity. So I made this unit with my particular group of students in mind, and that is what I think really helped me to get a good result in the end and to engage my students fully, because I understood how they learn, what they were learning, and also what they needed to learn before they go to high school. So if I were to run this unit again, I'd obviously have to adjust the language that I used and some of the activities that I used to suit that group of students in particular. And also I think the reason why it was so successful with this group in particular is because in previous terms we'd already done visual literacy, we'd done concepts of visual images and meaning in images, symbols, and also we've been exploring social issues in weekly journal tasks. So basically by putting these two things together, that's what led me to develop this unit, and that's why I think it was so successful. So if I were to recommend any changes, I think that's the most important thing, to make sure that what you're teaching and the resources that you use are suitable for your students. And I think if I'd had more time, or if I'd had more opportunity, I would have extended the unit a little bit further with some peer feedback tasks or a speaking activity, or maybe a debate of some kind. But I think as it was, I managed to meet one formal outcome and also sort of informally assess lots of different skills throughout the unit. So overall, the unit was a very valuable teaching experience for me. I feel like I learned a lot about my students and how to make really complex issues more accessible to them, and also to treat visual literacy not just as something that you do by the wayside, but as an explicit skill, and then reflecting on visual literacy as another skill, which is applicable to all the subjects that the students will study in high school. So overall, I think it was a challenge for both the students and for me, but in the end, it was very successful and meaningful.